Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
A few years ago, my best friend came back to our hometown and started his own welding business. Seeing me still struggling to find my path, he offered me a job as his helper. At first, I was just there to hand him tools and clean up, but over time he taught me the trade. Before I knew it, I was a full-fledged welder myself. Our days always started early. We'd meet up at the crack of dawn, hop in his diesel truck, and head to the local gas station to fuel up before hitting our job sites. This place was massive, but for some reason, they only had 2 diesel pumps. It was a constant source of frustration for us and other workers who relied on diesel. One morning, we were pulling into the station as usual when this jerk in a lowered sports car cut us off. He zoomed right in front of us and parked squarely in front of one of the diesel pumps. The other pump was already occupied by a construction worker filling up both his truck and the equipment on his trailer. As the sports car guy got out, we rolled down our window. I called out to him, politely asking if he could park somewhere else since this was a diesel pump and we needed to fill up. Instead of responding, he just flipped us off and strolled into the store like he owned the place. My friend and I sat there dumbfounded. We could see the guy's car was still running, probably so he could keep his AC on while he shopped. After a few minutes of waiting, my buddy got this mischievous look in his eye. He announced that he had an idea. Before I could say anything, he hopped out of our truck and jogged over to the sports car. Quick as a flash, he reached in through the open window, hit the lock button, and ran back to our truck, grinning like a kid who'd just pulled off the perfect prank. We waited another 10 minutes or so, watching the store entrance. Finally, the construction worker finished up, so we moved to the other pump to fill our truck. All this time, there was no sign of Mr. Entitled. Just as we were finishing up, almost 20 minutes after he'd gone in, the guy finally emerged from the store. He strutted over to his car, tried to open the door, and nothing. That's when the panic set in. He started pulling frantically at the door handle, then peering through the windows at his keys, sitting on the seat, the engine still humming away. After a moment of frantic pacing, he spotted us and our truck full of tools. He came running over, his arrogant demeanor replaced by desperation. He called out to us, asking for help. He explained that he had locked his keys in his car and was going to be late for work. My friend and I exchanged a look, remembering the middle finger he'd given us earlier. My friend told him we couldn't help. I chimed in, suggesting that maybe next time he'd think twice before blocking a diesel pump when he wasn't even getting gas. The guy pleaded with us again, saying he was sorry and asking if we could just help him out. My friend refused. We packed up our gear and climbed back into our truck. As we pulled away, we could see him in the rearview mirror, frantically dialing on his phone, probably calling for a locksmith. I felt a little bad for the guy, but at the same time, it felt good to see someone face the music for their entitled behavior. As we drove off to our job site, my friend and I couldn't stop chuckling about the whole situation. It wasn't just about getting even, it was a reminder that a little consideration goes a long way in this world. And you can bet that every time we pulled into that gas station after that, we kept an eye out for any sign of that lowered sports car. We never saw it again, but the memory of that entitled driver's comeuppance stayed with us, a shared joke that never failed to bring a smile to our faces. 3 years ago, when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. At first, I tried to hide it, but as my condition worsened, I had to face reality. Some days are better than others, but on bad days, walking even short distances can be extremely painful and exhausting. Last week, I was having one of those bad days. I needed to pick up some groceries, so I drove to the local supermarket. As usual, I parked in the handicapped spot near the entrance. I have a valid permit, which I always display on my dashboard. I got out of my car slowly, using my cane for support, and started making my way towards the store. That's when I heard someone shouting behind me. I turned around to see an angry-looking woman storming towards me, but she was pointing her finger at me accusingly. The woman demanded to know what I thought I was doing, parking in that spot. She insisted that I wasn't disabled, I tried to explain that I had a permit which was clearly displayed on my dashboard, but the woman didn't care about my permit. She accused me of obviously faking it, saying I didn't look disabled to her. I tried to explain my situation calmly. I told her that not all disabilities are visible and that I have multiple sclerosis. I added that today was a particularly difficult day for me. The woman called me a liar. She accused me of being a lazy thief, stealing spots from people who really need them. She even suggested that I had stolen the permit. By this point, a small crowd had gathered around us. I was feeling embarrassed and frustrated, but I tried to keep my cool. I assured her that I wasn't lying or stealing anything and asked her to please leave me alone and let me do my shopping. But the woman refused. She threatened to call the police, saying I was going to get what I deserved, calling me a fraud. She pulled out her phone and started dialing. I was shocked. I hadn't done anything wrong, but here I was, being treated like a criminal. While we waited for the police to arrive, the woman continued to hurl insults at me, calling me names and accusing me of all sorts of things. About 10 minutes later, 2 police officers showed up. The woman immediately started ranting at them. She expressed relief at their arrival and accused me of parking illegally in a handicapped spot. She insisted that I was clearly not disabled and must have stolen the permit. She demanded that I be arrested. The officers looked at me, then at her, then back at me. One of them asked the woman to calm down, then asked me to explain my side of the story. I took a deep breath and explained my situation again, showing them my permit and offering to provide medical documentation if necessary. The officers listened patiently, then turned to the woman. One officer explained to the woman that I had a valid permit and had explained my condition. He said there was no evidence of any wrongdoing. The woman protested, insisting that I didn't look disabled and was obviously lying. The first officer explained to her that not all disabilities are visible. He warned her that making false accusations and harassing people is a serious offense. He asked her to leave the premises. The woman was incredulous. She couldn't believe they were serious, insisting that she was the one trying to uphold the law. The second officer informed her that she was actually the one breaking the law. He explained that harassment and making false accusations are punishable offenses. He warned her that if she didn't leave immediately, they would have no choice but to detain her. The woman sputtered for a moment, then the officers turned back to me. They apologized for what I had to go through and asked if I was all right. I thanked them and said I was okay. They then offered to take my statement if I wanted to press charges for harassment. I thought about it for a moment but decided against it. I told them it wasn't necessary and that I thought she had learned her lesson. The officers nodded and wished me well before leaving. As they walked away, I noticed a woman watching from her car, looking thoroughly chastised. I hope she learned something from this experience. When I was looking to buy my first home, I've been saving for years, working extra shifts at the hospital where I'm a nurse, and finally felt ready to take the plunge into home ownership. I'd heard good things about this local credit union, so I decided to check them out for a mortgage. They told me I needed to open an account with a $5 deposit just to submit an application. No big deal, I thought. I transferred the money and opened the account. But then things took a turn. When I sat down with their loan officer, I quickly realized their rates weren't competitive at all. I politely thanked them for their time and decided to go with another lender who offered much better terms. I figured I'd just close the account, get my $5 back, and move on with my life. Oh, how naive I was. I called up the credit union thinking this would be a quick and easy process. I explained that I wanted to close my account and have my $5 deposit returned. The credit union representative informed me that they couldn't close accounts over the phone. They said I'd need to submit a written request with a wet signature stating my reason for closing the account. Confused, I asked if they meant I had to physically mail them a letter, wondering if I could just do this electronically. The representative confirmed that it was indeed their policy and electronic closure wasn't possible. It was 2021, for crying out loud. We were in the middle of a pandemic, everything was going digital, and these people wanted me to mail them a letter over $5? I pointed out how extremely outdated this seemed and asked if there was surely a way to verify my identity digitally. The representative acknowledged my frustration but insisted it was their policy and there was nothing else they could do. I asked to speak with a supervisor, thinking surely someone with more authority would see how ridiculous this was. But nope, same story. The supervisor apologized for the inconvenience but reiterated that they required a written request with a wet signature to close any account, claiming it was for my protection. Incredulous, I questioned what exactly they were protecting me from. The grave danger of efficiently closing an account I no longer wanted or needed. The supervisor just repeated the apology and insisted it was their policy. At this point, I was beyond frustrated. I decided if they wanted to play hardball over $5, I'd give them a run for their money. I told them that if they insisted on keeping my account open, I wanted to change some settings. I requested all communications be sent to me via paper mail, statements, forms, notices, everything. The supervisor seemed surprised and started to mention their convenient e-statements, but I cut them off. I restated my request for paper only and made sure they had my current mailing address. If they were going to be stubborn about my $5, I was going to make sure it cost them a whole lot more than that in postage and printing. For the next 3 years, like clockwork, I received a thick envelope from them every month. Statements, privacy notices, random credit union news, you name it. They mailed it to me. Each statement threatened the $10 monthly maintenance fee, which they mysteriously waived every single time. I started to look forward to those envelopes. Each one was a small victory, a reminder that sometimes you have to get creative when dealing with bureaucratic nonsense. I'd laughed to myself, imagining some poor employee stuffing yet another envelope for the account with a whopping $5 balance. One day, about 3.5 years after this all started, I received a different kind of letter from the credit union. It was from the CEO herself. In the letter, she acknowledged that I had been trying to close my account for quite some time and sincerely apologized for the inconvenience I'd experienced. She explained that they had reviewed their policies and realized they were indeed outdated. The CEO informed me that as of next month, they would be implementing a new digital account closure process. She offered me the opportunity to be one of the first to use this new system and additionally offered $100 as a gesture of goodwill for the frustration I'd endured. It had taken years, but finally someone had seen reason. I called them up, closed my account digitally in less than 5 minutes, and received my original $5 deposit plus the $100 bonus. My stubbornness paid off. Not only did I get my money back, and then some, but I also sparked a change that would benefit future customers. Sometimes it pays to stand your ground, even over $5. My life seemed perfect. A loving wife, an amazing son, and a loyal dog. We were the picture-perfect family, or so I believed. I met my wife in college. She was vibrant, intelligent, and we shared the same dreams. After graduation, we got married and started our careers. A few years later, our son was born, and life couldn't have been better. I work as an engineer, often putting in long hours to provide for my family. My wife chose to be a stay-at-home mom, which I fully supported. She seemed to love taking care of our son, and I trusted her completely. We got our dog when our son was about 5 years old. It was actually my wife's idea. She thought it would teach our son responsibility. Everything seemed fine until recently when I started noticing some odd behavior from our dog. He'd always been gentle and loved everyone in the family, but suddenly he was acting strangely around my wife, especially when she was near our son. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe the dog was just going through a phase. But then, a few weeks ago, something happened that I couldn't ignore. My wife went to tickle our son, and our dog completely lost it. He snapped, growled, and chased her out of the room. I was shocked. This wasn't like our dog at all. Later that day, I decided to talk to my son about it. I gently asked him if I could ask him something, and he agreed. When I inquired about why he thought our dog had acted that way with his mom earlier, my son looked uncomfortable and didn't want to answer. But I gently pressed on, feeling that something wasn't right. My son hesitated, telling me he couldn't say because his mom had told him not to. My heart sank. I couldn't imagine what could be so bad that my wife would tell our son to keep secrets from me. I reassured him that it was okay to tell me anything and promised I wouldn't be mad. After some coaxing, my son finally broke down and told me everything. He revealed that his mom had hit him when she was really angry, and she had threatened that she wouldn't love him anymore if he told me about it. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, had hit our child? I asked if this had happened before, and my son admitted it had occurred once before we got our dog. He also shared that sometimes his mom would say she wouldn't love him if he didn't do things right away, like folding his laundry. I was furious. How could she do this to our son? He's such a good kid. The worst thing he does is leave his dirty socks on the floor and need reminders about homework. This was unacceptable. I knew I had to act fast. I called the police and reported what my son had told me. It was hard on him. He didn't speak for days after telling me about his mom. But when the police came, he nodded yes to confirm what I'd reported. My wife was removed from the house, and I immediately filed for divorce and sole custody. It's been tough on our son. Despite everything, he still loves his mom and misses her. But I can't let him grow up in an abusive environment. I've arranged for him to see a therapist to help him process everything that's happened. As for visitation with his mom, I'm waiting on advice from my lawyer. If it happens, it'll be supervised. I won't take any chances with my son's safety. Our dog has been a bit depressed since my wife left. She was his favorite person after all. But he's slowly coming around, and I make sure to give him extra love and attention. My soon-to-be ex-wife is facing charges of child abuse. The evidence from our son's testimony and the therapist's report was damning. She's looking at potential jail time and will likely lose all custody rights. It's not the outcome I ever wanted for our family, but it's what's necessary to protect our son. The divorce proceedings have been messy. She tried to paint me as an absent father, but our son's account and character witnesses from neighbors and teachers quickly shut that down. The judge wasn't impressed with her attempts to manipulate the situation. In the end, I was granted full custody, with my ex-wife only allowed supervised visitation once a month. She's required to attend anger management classes and undergo therapy before she can petition for more time with our son. It's been a tough journey, but we're healing. Our son is doing better in therapy, and he's starting to open up more. The dog has become even more protective of him, rarely leaving his side when he's home. I'm learning to be both mom and dad. It's not easy, but seeing my son smile again makes it all worth it. We're not the picture-perfect family we once appeared to be, but we're real, we're healing, and we're going to be okay. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.